All right, let's just dive right in. Welcome, everyone. Today, we've got a fantastic, highly focused explainer lined up for you. We're going to break down the complete history of Buddhism. Whether you're studying for a big exam or you're just a massive history buff looking to fill in some blanks, mastering this is really going to deepen your understanding of Indian history as a whole. We're keeping it structured, we're keeping it high yield, and we're entirely focused on the absolute must-know facts.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, the early life of Siddhartha, then his four major life events, the famous royal patrons, the sects of Buddhism, sacred texts and teachings, and finally, the four Buddhist councils.
Starting off with Section 1, the early life of Siddhartha.
Okay, think of this as the ultimate hero's journey skeleton. You've got to lock this into your memory. He was born in 563 BC in a village called Lumbini, which was in Kapilavastu, that's in present-day Nepal. At age 16, he was married to Yashodhara. Then, at 29, he made this absolutely massive decision to just leave his home behind. By 35, he attained enlightenment, and he eventually passed away in 483 BC.
To flesh out that early life a bit, let's look at the key figures around him. His father was King Shuddhodana. And, it's pretty interesting. When Siddhartha was born, texts say several Brahmins prophesied he would either become a great king or a great ascetic. Naturally, his dad tried very hard to prevent that second option. Now, his biological mother, Mahamaya, tragically passed away just 7 days after his birth. So he was actually raised by his stepmother and aunt, Prajapati Gautami. And here's a really fascinating little detail for you. Prajapati Gautami would actually go on to become the very first female monk in Buddhism. He also had his wife, Yashodhara, and a son named Rahul.
Moving right along to Section 2, four major life events.
Now listen up, because examiners and historians absolutely love this exact terminology. First up, we have Mahabhinishramana. This translates to the Great Departure. Like we just talked about, this is that pivotal moment when Siddhartha, at 29 years old, completely rejected his royal destiny, left his home, and set out to become an ascetic. In all the classical Buddhist texts, this event is always referred to by this specific, highly tested term.
So, after 6 years of really intense meditation, at age 35, he experienced our second major event, nirvana, or bodhi. This is his attainment of enlightenment. The crucial thing here is locking down the exact geographical details. He was sitting under a peepal tree, right on the banks of the Nirajana River, which is also known as the Falgo River, in Bodh Gaya, Bihar. Believe me, those highly specific details are favorite trivia targets for competitive exams, so keep them fresh in your mind.
All right, so once he actually became the Buddha, he traveled over to Sarnath, near Benares, for our third event, Dharma Chakra Pravartana. This was his very first sermon, and he delivered it to 5 sages. What's brilliant about this is how it perfectly illustrates his connection to everyday people. He deliberately chose to speak in Pali, the language of the masses, rather than some exclusive, elite, scholarly language. This event literally signifies the turning of the wheel of Dharma.
And finally, the fourth major event, Mahaparinirvana. This marks the Buddha's passing at age 80, back in 483 BC. Now, speaking objectively as a historian here, there's a whole legend that a disciple named Chunda fed him some poisoned meat which ultimately led to his death. But honestly, for your exams, don't stress over the exact cause. What really matters, and what you absolutely need to take away from this, is the location. He passed in Kushinagar, which is located near modern Gorakhpur in Uttar Pradesh.
Which kind of brings us to a really fascinating question, doesn't it? How exactly did a single wandering ascetic's teachings explode into the 6th largest global religion? It actually started out incredibly humbly. His very first 2 followers were from the Shudra class, 2 men named Tapas and Malak. But from those 2, it expanded like wildfire.
That takes us right into Section 3, famous royal patrons.
See, the rapid spread of these ideas wasn't just some grassroots movement. It was massively, heavily backed by major political dynasties across completely different eras. These are the 5 kings you've got to remember. Magadha basically became this central hub for the religion, which attracted Bimbisara and his successor Ajatashatru from the Haryalka dynasty. Fast forward a bit, and the great Ashoka from the Mauryan dynasty became this huge proponent. He's the one who built all those famous pillars. Then we have Kanishka from the Kushan dynasty, and finally Gopala from the Pala dynasty. Just group these 5 kings together in your head because they are highly, highly tested.
Now, while he traveled widely and picked up all these royal followers, you've got to remember this one crucial spot, Shravasti, the capital of Kosala.
This is the place where the highest volume of his actual sermons took place.
All right, Section 4, Sects of Buddhism.
So, as things evolved and fractured over time, the major split was between the Hinayana and Mahayana sects. Hinayana was strictly resistant to change. They insisted on adhering only to the ancient original rules. On the flip side, the Mahayana sect emerged because its followers were much more open to adaptation as time went on. And what's really interesting here is that the founder of the Mahayana sect was a guy named Nagarjuna. He is actually famously known as the Einstein of India because he proposed this incredible theory called Shunyavada.
Just for historical completeness, there is a third branch you should at least briefly recognize, and that's Vajrayana. This one emerged a bit later, around the 6th century, and it was heavily centered on mysticism, tantra, and mantra. It's maybe a little less critical for your immediate core history exams, but it's super important for understanding how the whole religion diversified.
Next up, Section 5, Sacred Texts and Teachings.
Okay, so just like Jainism has its jewels, Buddhism has the Triratna, literally the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Then we have the Jataka tales. These are sacred texts that are incredibly famous for being visually depicted in the stunning, intricate art of the Ajanta caves. And finally, and I mean this, sear this one into your brain, the Buddha Charita. This is the definitive biography of the Buddha, authored by Asvaghosha. Definitely memorize that author and title pair for sure.
And our final stop today, Section 6, the 4 Buddhist councils.
Take a mental screenshot of this table, guys. You need to lock these 4 locations into your memory because they are constant exam favorites. The first council happened right around the time of his death in 483 BC in Rajgriha, during the reign of Ajatashatru. The second is in Vaishali, the third in Pataliputra, and the fourth way up in Kashmir. Just chant that sequence a few times. Rajgriha, Vaishali, Pataliputra, Kashmir.
And that actually brings us to the end of our crash course. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. If a single wandering teacher could literally inspire massive empires and carve out breathtaking caves centuries after his death, what historical ideas are quietly shaping our world today? It is absolutely amazing to step back and reflect on the immense, lasting power